Before he was the leather-clad frontman of Aerosmith, before the scarves, the stage screams, and the rock and roll chaos, Steven Tyler was just a kid from Yonkers with a dream and a voice that could shake the walls. But the story of how he became one of America's most iconic rock singers isn't as glamorous as the spotlight suggests. It's a story of obsession, rebellion, and raw destiny. Today we're diving deep into the untold story of how Steven Tyler became the Demon of Screamin. Part 1. Early life. Steven Tyler was born on March 26, 1948 in Yonkers, New York. His father, Victor Tellerico, was a classically trained pianist and music teacher, a man who filled the house with Bach, Mozart, and Chopin. From a young age, Steven was surrounded by music, but unlike his father's refined taste, Steven was drawn to the wild energy of rock and roll. He was the kind of kid who would bang on the furniture, mimic the singers he heard on the radio, and dream about stages much bigger than his living room. But there was something else, a restless streak, a bit of chaos inside him, even then. Steven wasn't just hearing the music, he was living it. Part 2. A troubled youth. As a teenager, Steven struggled to fit in. He bounced around schools, got into trouble, and even battled early drug use. But one constant remained: music. He joined a series of small bands, the Strangers, the Chain Reaction, playing drums, singing backup, anything just to be near the sound. He'd perform covers of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones in high school gyms and basements, watching the crowds go wild. And he thought, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. Still, his father wasn't convinced. Music's a tough life, Victor warned. But Steven didn't care. The fire was already lit. Part 3. The moment that changed everything. In the late 1960s, Steven took a trip that would change his life. He went to Sunapee, New Hampshire, a sleepy town where he met a young guitarist named Joe Perry, who worked at a local ice cream parlor. Steven heard Joe play. Raw, bluesy, explosive. It was everything he'd been searching for. I heard Joe play and thought, that's the guy. That's the sound. That summer, fate brought together Steven Tyler, Joe Perry, Tom Hamilton, Joey Kramer, and later Brad Whitford. By 1970, they'd formed a band called Aerosmith, a name that sounded like flight, freedom, and danger all at once. Part 4. Finding his voice. At first, Steven Tyler didn't even sound like the Steven Tyler we know today. In those early rehearsals, he was trying to sing like his idols, Mick Jagger, Paul McCartney, Janis Joplin. But something wasn't clicking. Then, one night during a rehearsal, he just let go. He screamed. It wasn't pretty, but it was powerful. That raw, high-pitched wail would become his signature. It wasn't imitation anymore. It was Steven Tyler's true voice. And when Aerosmith released their debut album in 1973, that voice ripped through tracks like Dream On, a song Steven had written years earlier while sleeping on a couch at his parents' house. The lyrics were pure emotion, born from frustration and hope. Dream on. Dream until your dream comes true. Part 5. The Rise to Fame. By the mid-1970s, Aerosmith exploded. Songs like Sweet Emotion, Walk This Way, and Back in the Saddle catapulted the band to superstardom. And at the center of it all, Steven Tyler, with his scarves, his serpentine dance moves, and that unstoppable scream. He wasn't just a singer anymore. He was a performer, part preacher, part animal, part poet. But fame came with a price. Drugs, exhaustion, and internal feuds nearly tore the band apart. Part 6: Fall and Rebirth. By the early 1980s, Aerosmith was falling apart. Steven's addictions nearly killed him, literally. But he refused to let his story end there. In 1986, after a painful recovery, he and the band reunited, sober, focused, and ready to fight their way back. And then came a miracle: the collaboration with Run DMC. Their 1986 remake of Walk This Way fused rock and hip-hop and reintroduced Aerosmith to a new generation. Steven Tyler was back, louder, bolder, and stronger than ever. Part 7: Legacy. Decades later, Steven Tyler remains one of rock's greatest frontmen, a man who turned chaos into art and rebellion into legacy. He once said, "If you're going to fly, you might as well leave a trail of glitter in the sky." And that's exactly what he did. From a kid in Yonkers chasing a sound in his head to a rock legend who defined generations, Steven Tyler's journey shows us that no dream is too wild and no voice is too loud to be heard. He didn't just sing his story, he screamed it into history. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the rise of Steven Tyler and want to see more stories behind the world's greatest artists, make sure to leave a like, drop a comment about your favorite Aerosmith song, and subscribe for more rock history every week. And remember, dream on. Dream until your dream comes true.